Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org. Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. The Safeway app features shopping for curbside pickup and home delivery, plus meal planning, pharmacy, and more. Learn more at Safeway.com.
Hey there, happy Monday. Let's start out with some good news. Across the Front Range, it's supposed to be sunny with highs in the 70s today. And that warm weather, it's supposed to stick around the whole week. So take advantage of it and let us know what your favorite hiking trails are. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel.
And I'm Bazi Kanani. Hoping to change national policy, Denver schools sued the U.S. government to keep ICE agents away.
Then, an effort to make the price you pay for medicine closer to what it actually costs.
I made $1.60 filling this prescription.
Also, we have good news for prospective homebuyers.
And
how I should know if I should grab a jacket or not.
especially when the typical weather pattern is reversed.
It's Monday, March 10th. Here's the news in Colorado today. Over the weekend, about 1,000 people marched in Denver and a couple hundred in Colorado Springs. That is part of a march for International Women's Day.
I don't think any one protest is going to make a big difference, but if you put in thousands and thousands of protests with yes, I think they make a huge difference.
Dana Miller was in the crowd in Denver, where marchers criticized various parts of President Trump's agenda, from LGBTQ rights to the war in Gaza. Immigration was not as much of a focus in the streets this weekend, but it is raising concerns at some schools where attendance is down, particularly in places with large number of migrant students.
Denver public schools took the feds to court over this. They say President Trump's reversal of a decades-old policy that stopped federal immigration enforcement in schools, as well as hospitals and churches, is the reason kids have stayed home. DPS attorneys presented their case before a federal judge late Friday, and CPR's Ben Marcus was in the room. Ben, what did the school district hope the judge would do?
First, when I got down there were 100 people in this federal courthouse in downtown Denver. I'd never seen that many. There were no available seats. That gives you some sense of how important this case was. DPS was essentially asking for a preliminary nationwide injunction while this case plays out. They wanted the judge to go back to an old policy under the Biden administration, which had specific protections for schools from immigration enforcement actions.
What did DPS have to say about the effect that changes to immigration enforcement have had on their students and their communities?
They said that there is a direct harm, that attendance is down 3% in February compared to the same month last year. They said schools that had large numbers of migrant students, attendance was down even more in those schools, though they didn't specify exactly how much. They also said that the enforcement has caused stress for students and for teachers, and it has caused teachers to lose time that they would normally spend teaching.
And then the other side, what did the federal government say in its defense?
So basically, the federal government is saying that they have a lot of leeway in enforcing immigration laws, and that the new policy under President Trump actually still requires an approval before going through an immigration action at a school. So there is a process still in place there.
It seems like the decision in this case came quickly. What did the judge decide here?
So this judge was appointed by President Trump. He noted that his mother was a school teacher, but he was skeptical from the jump of DPS's case. He said that the policy change wasn't all that different, and he struggled to see any direct harm from the Trump policy in Denver. A lot of debate in court around a specific action that happened last month in the Denver area at the Cedar Run Apartments, where a DPS bus stop was blocked by the enforcement action. The judge, though, was very skeptical that if we went back to the Biden-era policy of protected places, that would actually stop an enforcement action like that from happening.
And does this ruling have an impact beyond Denver?
It means the Trump policy stays in effect nationwide. It basically relies on immigration agents common sense, quote unquote, in enforcing immigration in these sensitive locations.
Ben Marcus, thank you.
Thank you.
When's the last time you tried to get a prescription at a pharmacy that wasn't one of the big chains? It's getting a lot harder because independent pharmacies are disappearing in Colorado. Yes, part of that is that they struggle to compete with multi-billion-dollar chains like Walgreens and CVS, but their decline also reveals something fundamental about the problems with the U.S. healthcare system, problems that directly affect consumers like you. Denverite's Paolo Sciascia has been digging into this issue. Paolo, tell me about these healthcare industry middlemen that you reported on. Who are they, and how have they affected independent pharmacies?
They're called pharmacy benefit managers. They're supposed to negotiate lower prices for patients. They do that by going between drug companies, insurers, and pharmacies. And they've built up a lot of power. And lately they've been scrutinized, including in court, where state and federal prosecutors claim some of them break consumer protection laws by taking kickbacks and driving up prescription drug prices.
Driving prices up instead of down, I imagine.
Yes.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, so I went to one of the last independent pharmacies in Denver. It's called Capitol Heights Pharmacy. Kristen Holmes is the co-owner with her husband. She showed me a receipt where the pharmacy was asked to fill a standard steroid cream prescription that cost $9.77 for her to get. But the insurance company told the customer to pay a $64.75 copay for that prescription.
Okay, $65 for something that costs $10.
Yep, that's exactly right. And most of that did not go to the pharmacy.
Sometimes we're not even covering our costs of that med, even though it looks like they're paying a lot of money for something.
Holmes says this explains a lot about the crisis in American healthcare. She told me that the insurance company asked the pharmacy for most of the money back.
The patient comes in and thinks that they paid me $64 for this med, when in effect, they only paid me, I made $1.60 filling this prescription because the insurance company took this amount back from me for the privilege of filling the med.
It seems that she's putting a lot of the blame into the benefit manager. Why is that?
Yeah, the Holmes family and much of the independent pharmacy market in Colorado says pharmacy benefit managers operate without a lot of oversight. She argues that allows them to get away with a lot of questionable practices. So Holmes really blames pharmacy benefit managers for the distrust in the healthcare system and for the decline in independent pharmacies like hers.
How many are left exactly?
Yeah, there were over 260 independent pharmacies in Colorado in 2007, according to a report from George Washington University's now-defunct National Health Policy Forum. A little over a decade later, it was down to more than 100. So I don't know the exact number right now, but I can tell you this has happened statewide.
And what does Holmes think we can do about it?
She supports a bipartisan bill moving through the state legislature that would regulate pharmacy benefit managers more in Colorado. It essentially regulates what they can be paid for prescriptions and increases transparency. This is the second bill in 2 years targeting pharmacy benefit managers. Last year, state lawmakers increased their oversight of the industry.
Paolo, thank you.
You're welcome.
If you're looking to buy a home, you have more choices. The number of homes on the market is way up. CPR's Sarah Mulholland is here to dive into this with us. Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Bozzy.
How many homes are we talking about here?
So in the Denver metro area, and when we say Denver metro area, we're talking about Denver County, Boulder County, Broomfield, Arapahoe, a whole bunch of different areas, not just Denver. In that region, there's 50% more homes on the market than the same time last year. So that's a pretty big deal. And if you think about in 2022, there's 7 times as many homes available for sale as in 2022 when the market was really, really tight.
Wow. And is this trend likely to extend beyond the Denver area? So would this be likely to be the case in Colorado Springs as well, for example?
Yeah, it's definitely the case in Colorado Springs and the entire Front Range.
So what's causing this big change? Is this about interest rates?
This is about interest rates. With the housing market, it's always about interest rates, or a lot of it is about interest rates. And what you're seeing now is, we've been in this high interest rate environment for 3 years. And for a while, people were waiting for interest rates to go down before they put their house on the market. But Eventually, you can't just keep waiting to move. Life circumstances change, your family grows, you get a new job, you retire. You just have to sell your home. And what we're starting to see now is people are just putting those houses on the market that they were holding off before.
If you are a prospective home buyer, does this mean you just have more time to think through the options rather than having to hurry up and put your offer in and hope to get the home?
Absolutely. So the buyers are getting the upper hand now. So you can really take your time. You can make sure the inspection is all in order. You don't have to worry so much about bidding wars erupting in one weekend. So this is definitely a good thing for the buyers if they can afford the home.
And what about home prices? Are they likely to be less expensive because of all the extra options that are out there?
Eventually. So far, that hasn't really happened yet. You've seen a little bit of movement, but prices have been pretty much stable. But now that you're really starting to see more homes hit the market, that should filter through to home prices.
On the other hand, what about those homeowners who are looking to sell? Is this still a good time for them?
Definitely, it's going to take a little bit longer to sell your home. Also, you want to make sure that all the maintenance is completed, that you make sure your home looks good, that it has curb appeal. All those kind of things that can attract buyers are more important now that there's so many homes that you're competing with on the market.
A little more work on that end. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Most of the time when you move up in elevation, the weather is cooler, right?
Emphasis on most of the time, Bozzy.
CPR's Ryan Warner is here to clarify. Ryan, I know you fielded a question about this from a listener.
Roxanne Dawson lives in Genesee at 7,777 feet.
7777. That is a lucky elevation.
Indeed. And she is perplexed when she heads down the hill and has to bundle up.
I'm just wondering what's going on and why this happens.
I asked Denver 7's chief meteorologist, Lisa Hidalgo, to explain.
It doesn't happen often.
But indeed, sometimes in the dead of winter,
we can get this really cold Arctic air mass that sinks in from the north, from Canada, and then backs in from the northeastern plains. So first it gets cold in Sterling, and then it starts to stretch into Greeley, and then it hits the I-25 corridor. And the mountains, the foothills, those kind of act like a barrier. You have sunshine and beautiful conditions up in the foothills, say Genesee, up over Lookout Mountain, Evergreen, Conifer, and then you roll east over the plains, and there's a sea of cloud cover, and it can be 10 to 15 degrees colder.
That is the opposite of what I expect, which is usually that it's 10 degrees colder up in the foothills. I always take like a fleece or an extra layer when I'm headed up that way.
Totally. And Roxanne wants to know when she'd need a jacket heading down.
You know, my answer would be in Colorado, you should always just have a jacket. You should, unless it's the dead of summer. I would say for Roxanne, she ever wakes up in the morning and she looks off over the eastern plains and she sees that sea of cloud cover where you can't even see the metro area or any houses across the eastern plains. Pretty good bet things are going to be chillier down there because we've got all of that low-lying cloud cover and that cooler air backed in.
The key is always to dress in layers in Colorado.
Oh gosh, I hear my mom's voice in my head. Always have a jacket, Ryan. So I pack one in my trunk.
I'm glad you listened to your mother.
I know you are a parent. You feel this.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you, Ryan. I also appreciate you joining us here on Colorado Today.
Oh, my first appearance. What a joy.
And Ryan speaks with Lisa Hidalgo monthly about our state's climate and weather on the Colorado Matters podcast. If something about Colorado puzzles you, send it to Colorado Wonders at the link in our show notes.
Additional reporting for today's show came from Denverite's Kevin Beatty and CPR's Stephanie Rivera. Thanks for joining us as you're getting your week started. Remember to follow Colorado Today in your podcast app. And if you love the mission of CPR News as much as we do, please spread the word about the new podcast. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel.
And I'm Bazi Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. The Safeway app features shopping for curbside pickup and home delivery, plus meal planning, pharmacy, and more. Learn more at Safeway.com. Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.